Now we have JD Vance. And of course, this famous church, which we remember from the summer of 2020 when Donald Trump went against Lafayette Park. It was, parts of it were burned. And it was a very controversial sort of last time he attended that church. And now he's there as sort of a conquering king, returning to Washington, really with everyone under his thumb. And just how remarkable his comeback has been is unprecedented, to say the least. November 15th, 2022, when he said, announced he'd be running again, very few lawmakers even showed up to that. Now Capitol Hill is at his beck and call.
And Keith Anderson Bauer, there's a tradition of presidents signing a book inside that book.
Right, and I think this is so interesting, the juxtaposition of all these traditional parts of our democracy and with the most untraditional president that we have ever had coming to light. I mean, in 1921 was the first time that a departing president invited the incoming president and first lady to the White House. That was the Wilsons inviting the Hardings. And, just to see history playing out in this way and to see these traditions being revisited, I think back to Truman and Eisenhower and their icy ride to the White House. I'm so curious to see what that ride is going to be like.
It's interesting that he sits in the front row. This is the first time a president has sat in the front row. Traditionally, they didn't, because in the beginning they were selling the pews in the front row to people who helped support the church. But Lincoln sat in the back row. Trump sits in the front row.
People don't think he's a man of faith. Donald Trump has faith in himself, and that's important because I think Abby was mentioning people are projecting onto him almost a kind of a messianic awe because there's the person like Donald Trump. There he is, and it's highly unlikely this man would be standing here right now. There are other scenarios where he could have been literally killed, put in prison. Instead, he's going into that church as the incoming president.
This is the first time that we are seeing both Melania Trump and President-elect Trump today. Saw him yesterday at the arena. Yeah, the beginning of what will be a very long day for them, very exciting day for them and their supporters as well, including the Reverend there and St. John's Church.
Well, something those of us who know Donald Trump always kind of wonder is he struck by these moments? Because he's somebody who's lived a very remarkable and different life than many different lives. And I have to wonder, after the loss, after how he left Washington, D.C., really as a pariah, coming back and having lines outside of the Capitol One Arena, being welcomed into this church that he certainly wouldn't have been at another.
She's actually been doing a lot of studying and intensive preparation going into this administration, whether that's reading up on foreign affairs or making sure she's steeped on what's happening here in Washington, because obviously she may be certainly a quieter influence around the president-elect, but she certainly is one of the biggest influences. When you talk to people, they say that really the only person who can change his mind on something guaranteed is Melania Trump. And so to see her going into the church with him, she talks about how going into the White House this time around, she didn't even know how to move into the White House really, and those
inauguration morning migrate here to the White House. The Bidens, of course, will host the Trumps for tea here at the White House before the two couples get in the motorcade together and take that short ride together over to Capitol Hill. And in talking to White House officials familiar with the planning,
millennial generation. Yeah. Donald Trump's completely skipping over Gen X, going right to the millennials.
But can I just also make one other point if we go back to the, control room, we're grabbing